to them, "A prophet is not without honor except in his native place and among his own kin and in his own house." So he was not able to perform any mighty deed there, apart from curing a few sick people by laying his hands on them. He was amazed at their lack of faith. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
How many of you know who Yogi Berra is? How many don't know who Yogi Berra is? How many don't care who Yogi Berra is? I got it. Okay. Want to know who I'm talking to? Okay. Well, he was a Hall of Fame baseball player born on the Hill right here in St. Louis and a longtime member of the New York Yankees baseball franchise. But even among those who do not follow baseball, Yogi was famous for his butchering of the English language. He'd say things that didn't make sense, at least on first hearing. For example, Yogi once said, "If you come to a fork in the road, take it." Now that sounds ridiculous unless you knew what Yogi's mindset was. And for that saying, he was actually referring to a place where there was a fork in the road and you could take either path and they both came back to the same place. So if you come to a fork in the road, take it. Now, here's some of Yogi's other famous sayings. So keep in mind that there's something behind this that really is logical. No one goes there nowadays, it's too crowded. A nickel ain't worth a dime anymore. Always go to other people's funerals, otherwise they won't come to yours. You wouldn't have won if we hadn't beaten you. I usually take a 2-hour nap from 1 to 4. Never answer an anonymous letter. The future ain't what it used to be. It gets late early out here. Why buy good luggage? You only use it when you travel. You got to be very careful if you don't know where you're going because you might not get there. I never said most of the things I said. It ain't the heat, it's the humility. If you ask me anything I don't know, I'm not going to answer. And a very famous one, it ain't over till it's over. Which brings me back to my gospel question. What did Jesus have in common with Yogi Berra? And the answer is, not everyone understood him because they didn't understand his mindset. Now consider today's gospel in which Jesus began to teach in the synagogue. And while they recognized the wisdom he had and saw the mighty deeds he performed, they took offense at him. And Jesus, in turn, was amazed at their lack of faith. Now, the people in that synagogue on that Sabbath day some 2,000 years ago could not in a million years dare to believe that this common man, this tradesman, a carpenter by profession, could have such wisdom. They knew his relatives, and they too were common people. They most certainly were not of the ruling class, nor were they the intelligentsia of their locale. So who did this guy think he was? Who did he think he was? It's clear from even a cursory reading of Scripture that people often took offense at Jesus, not only because he didn't have the proper credentials, but mostly they took offense at him because of what he said, because it demanded much. And we all know the saying based in ancient civilization, if you don't like the message, kill the messenger. And that's ultimately what they did. And this, my friends, has not gone out of style. In our day and age, we may not literally kill the messenger if we don't like the message, but instead we assassinate their character. And just watch how people talk on television, social media, Twitter about those they disagree with. Whether the topic's immigration, international trade, the economy, civil rights, human rights, people say terrible things about one another. As the saying goes, if words could kill, there would be carnage at an unimaginable level. So it behooves all of us to consider what's coming out of our mouths. But to return to Yogi Berra and Jesus. Yogi said, it ain't over till it's over. And Jesus said that he was amazed at their lack of faith. But where faith is concerned, I think Jesus would get what Yogi meant when he said it's not over till it's over. Because Jesus certainly knew and knows that the level of a person's faith at any moment in time is not the end point, and that everybody's faith development ain't over till it's over. And with both Yogi and Jesus, we will understand what is said by knowing more about the mindset of the speaker. So the operant question for us here is, well, what is faith? What did Jesus mean when he spoke of faith? And why was he so amazed at the lack of faith amongst those who took offense at him? So let's take a little moment to look at faith. It's clear that this word has several different meanings which may be related, but which also have some subtle differences. Faith is defined as 1, a strongly held belief or theory; 2, a system of religious beliefs; or 3, complete trust or confidence in someone or something. Now, we've all heard the term the Catholic faith. What is that? I suppose it means different things to different people, but I think most people would understand the Catholic faith in the sense of the second definition that I just read, namely a system of religious beliefs. Now, many would include not only the religious beliefs or dogmas, but also church law, canon law, the do's and don'ts in church law and canon law. Now, faith in this sense is, of course, applicable to other faith traditions. One of Queen Elizabeth's titles in the United Kingdom is Defender of the Faith, as titular head of the Church of England. It's interesting to note that this title was first conferred by Henry VIII in 1521 by Pope Leo X. I guess Pope Leo wouldn't have done that had he known that Henry VIII would renounce papal authority in 1534 when he failed to secure an annulment of his marriage to Catherine of Aragon, and then go on to start his own church outside the Catholic faith. It seems that Jesus preferred not to use the term faith in that sense, but more in the sense of the third definition: complete trust or confidence in someone or something. Jesus came to proclaim what he called the reign of God, not to establish a new church with all its laws and precepts. Now, please understand that Jesus was not an anarchist who eschewed all law and regulation. He didn't, and neither should we. Jesus faithfully kept the significant precepts of his faith while simultaneously ignoring, or in some cases speaking out against, unjust religious laws and regulations. Recall when he refused to take part in the stoning of the woman caught in adultery. Now, before the church became something apart from Judaism, it was not even called a church, nor did it have the label Christian. We know that it was first called the Way. We read in chapter 9 of Acts of the Apostles that Saul, before he became Paul, was on a mission to arrest, quote, any men and women who belong to the Way. So the very first Christians did not see themselves as belonging to a new faith, but more as men and women who followed the way of Jesus, who incidentally, as you know quite well, said in John 14:6, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Now, Jesus didn't focus much, if at all, on dogmas, but rather told his followers to focus on God. In John 14:1, he said, you have faith in God, have faith in me also. He also said in John 11:25, I am the resurrection and the life, and whoever believes in me, even if he dies, will live. He didn't say, come join my church, but rather come follow me, as we read in Matthew 4:19. In fact, according to one site I looked at as I was preparing this homily, there are 58 Bible verses that reference following Jesus. I don't know why we don't get it. By the way, we should not mistakenly think of faith as the ability to memorize Bible quotes and cite them chapter and verse. All that means is you have an incredibly good memory. That is not having faith in Jesus. Having faith in Jesus, biblically speaking, is about following him. So the next logical and important question, once we accept faith not just as a system of beliefs about Jesus, but more as having total trust and confidence in Jesus, is this. What does it mean to have faith in Jesus by trusting him, having confidence in him, and following him? It means this. We trust Jesus enough to go where he goes and to do what he did. That's what it means to trust him and to follow him. Believing in a system of beliefs like the infallible doctrines of the Immaculate Conception or the Assumption of Mary into heaven, as well as some other teachings of the Church, frankly don't demand a lot of us. Really? Okay, I believe those things. They don't really require anything of me. They don't cost me anything. Okay? Really easy to say I believe those things. But to follow Jesus, to trust Jesus, to have faith in Jesus does require something of me. It does cost me something of myself. Now, I'd like you all to think about that as you hear what Jesus is asking of us. I'm serious about this. Very carefully, thoughtfully, prayerfully, consider his beliefs and his teachings, his way. Feed the hungry. Give drink to the thirsty. Clothe the naked. Visit those in prison. Rejoice when you are persecuted for the sake of the kingdom. Comfort the sick and the dying. Welcome the immigrant and the stranger. Love your enemies. Do nothing that would lead a little child astray. Do good and pray for those who hate you. Take care of the widow and the orphan. Turn the other cheek. Choose worship of God over worship of money. Forgive those who have harmed you. If you want to be first, you should be last. So the important question is this. Do I share those beliefs and teachings of Jesus? Is that my faith? Is my faith more about espousing certain doctrines or more about following Jesus? Does my life reflect what Jesus taught and believed? So Jesus was amazed at the lack of faith of those folks in the